On today's show, 5 tips to help you win in retirement and how to maximize your success on the way to and through retirement. Stick around and come right back to elevate your wealth.
And now, elevate your wealth with Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome in to Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Over 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. And they are fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Each and every week, we hit the retirement topics, but we also give you an opportunity to take action on your own behalf. That's right. We have appointments available, Elevated Financial Management. These are no cost, no obligation, simply no pressure. We'll tell you about those appointments as we move through the program. We're going to make them available to our radio listeners and, again, exclusive to you. So listen up. So you can retire successfully, but to do so, you really need to plan carefully. You need to have a strategy. A retirement planning coach, financial advisor can help make all the difference. And needless to say, you can stand to benefit in many, many ways. But to kick off the show, we thought we would talk about maybe getting a head start on the planning process. Now, we've got 5 tips, and we're going to hit them all right, to help you get ahead of that curve. So, Casey, we'll start with you. This is a good one, and it's a great place to start. Determine when you're actually going to want to retire. What age?
Yeah, this is really, really important, Morgan, simply because this is what establishes your time horizon. When you're thinking about retirement, having a date in mind is what's going to drive how aggressive we're going to be with the investments, when it's time to start looking at alternative investments and, adjusting that risk exposure appropriately as to what fits for your plan. And so there's the other side of that too, is if we're not investing aggressively enough when we have a longer time frame, then we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're not having as much growth as we could. And so again, that time horizon is really, really important to make sure that we're driving towards an end goal and that we're adjusting accordingly to make sure that we can be successful given what that time horizon is.
5 tips to help you get ahead of that curve on the planning process when it comes to retirement. Number 1, determine when you want to retire. And 2, mark this one. I mean, just take a look at what you have. Assess your income sources in retirement.
Yeah, this is really critical. In fact, Casey and I talk about this on every show, every workshop we do. Retirement really is about income, income, income. And so the first thing that I and Casey try and do with each client is we're going to sit down with them and we're going to figure out where their guaranteed income is going to come from. For most of us, hopefully, you've got Social Security, unless you paid into a pension where you didn't pay into Social Security, then you may not have Social Security. But if you do, Social Security is going to be a big pillar for you. Now, we realize, too, our happiest clients are ones that have at least 2 sources of guaranteed income. They're fortunate enough that they're going to have a pension. Problem is, today, government statistics are telling us that probably only about 12% of people now are going to retire with a pension. So, and that includes all my Boeing clients up here in the Seattle area. They no longer have a pension. They've got just a 401k. So at what age you're going to take your Social Security is huge. We've got to come up with a strategy to maximize that for you. Are you going to, again, are you going to have a pension if you're fortunate enough? We got to determine that. If not, we may have to create what we call a private pension. And there's a way to do that because we can set up a guaranteed income stream that you cannot outlive. And that's really critical to setting up a successful plan. So a few people are going to have retirement income sources that meet or exceed all of their expectations. For most of our clients, that's not the case. A few are going to have what they need, but the majority are going to not be hitting their number, what we call their target number, like they would hope to. So you've got to figure all of this out. You need to do a great audit, figure out exactly where that income is going to come from so that you don't have any regrets when it comes to the guaranteed income that you need and desire that we care tremendously about setting up for our clients.
Getting ahead of the curve on the retirement planning process, things that you can do. We've got tips for you. We're also going to give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, and Elevated Financial Management, the team there. We've talked about already, determine when you're actually going to retire, the age, all right, so you can set up your plan around that. Then assess your income sources in retirement, very important. And then, Casey, this next one, what are your expenses going to be in retirement? You really need to have a good idea on that.
Yeah, well, Mark was just talking about income, and like he said, that's one of the most important things about retirement is understanding what your income is going to be, and of course, we want to understand what our outflow is going to be as well, right? What those expenses are, because you could have great income. Let's say you got $12,000 a month coming in retirement. That sounds great. But if you're spending $12,001, you're going the wrong way, right? And the reality of it is that anybody can spend a dollar more than they make, right? And so we've got to realistically have a plan that accounts for what our fixed expenses are, what it costs to just wake up and be us from day to day. And then in addition to that, we really want to understand what those other things are that's going to give us a happy, successful retirement, right? So if we want to travel, we want to take the kids or the grandkids with us, we want to do X, Y, and Z, spend every day on the golf course, whatever it is, what that cost is also needs to be accounted for. And what we find is a lot of times when we start talking about expenses, people tend to just think of their fixed expenses on a month-to-month basis, utilities, phone bill, mortgage, that kind of thing, car payment. And they kind of start to underestimate what their income is going to be to have a successful retirement, to have the retirement that they've been dreaming of. And so we want to account for all of those things, have an understanding of what the differences are in our different expenditures, our different categories when it comes to our expenses, and make sure that we're having a realistic plan that accounts for all of those things. Of course, when we think of our expenses prior to retirement and after retirement, there can be some differences. One of the main ones is a lot of folks look to pay off their mortgage before they retire or around the time that they retire. And so that does have an impact on how much income we need because it's, of course, adjusting our expected expenses down. And so we want to be realistic about that. Something that we do with everybody is have them create a budget. And we look at it from two different sides. One, there is the necessary expenses, and then there's the discretionary expenses. And those two categories, kind of broken down that way, can really start to open up a conversation about how we're spending inside the household and what really is going to drive, like I said, a successful retirement. So it's important to understand what those expenses are going to be.
Absolutely. Have a plan, work with professionals, work with a fiduciary team, and make sure that plan is in place as you move to retirement and through retirement. Gives you that ease of mind. We're just going over some tips so you can get ahead of the curve, determine when you're going to retire, what age. You can start, planning around that. Assess your income sources in retirement. Take a look at that portfolio. Work again with that fiduciary. Assess your expenses in retirement. That is going to be key, how it's all going to fit together. This next one, Mark, it has really eaten away at a lot of people's accounts, and that's inflation.
Yeah, this is something that we haven't seen this. It's probably 40 years since we've seen this kind of inflation. And boy, it's hitting everybody hard. I know when I go to the gas station, I have to fill up my car. Yeah, it's discouraging. And everybody's facing that. But what if you're on a fixed income? Inflation matters. So you've got to have a plan because we're paying less for things now than what they'll be in the future. And Social Security had a nice increase the last 2 years, almost 9% for 2023. But that's not really covering all of the costs that inflation is giving to us all. And so you've got to have a plan for that. Your plan needs to be adjusted so that your income hopefully is going up. The problem is a lot of pensions are what we call static. They don't increase at all. There is no COLAs, cost of living adjustments. And so that can be a real problem. So you need to have a plan. And that's what we do in our planning. We're going to add an inflation number each year and you need to compound that each and every year because things are going to get more and more expensive. And we're seeing that the last, it'll be 2 years now here very shortly. So you've got to find a way to deal with inflation, and then you've got to be able to make an adjustment, especially to your income, so that you're going to be able to keep up with inflation, which means hopefully your assets are increasing, and you've got some equities, because if we don't have any equities at all and we're so conservative either in cash or bonds, inflation is probably going to crush us. And that's not going to be good for long-term retirement planning.
We're about to open up spots on the counter with Elevated Financial Management. If you've got any questions about your retirement situation, you can grab one of these appointments. No cost, no obligation, no pressure. The last tip, Casey, we'll let you hit this one. You got to know what your asset allocation is.
Yeah, this is really, really important. And we'll just hit it real quick. Realistically, we need to understand what type of risk we're taking and what kind of risk we need to take to be successful. So we have got to save appropriately for retirement, but we've got to invest appropriately as well. If we're going to take more risk, that's likely more stock holdings. If we're going to lessen our risk, that can be okay, but it has to be part of a plan, because if we lessen our risk too much and we're not growing enough, then we're going to fall short as far as our spending goes in retirement. The opposite of that is true as well. If we take too much risk, we're open to more volatility, and our money may not be there when we need it, given certain market issues and things like we've experienced recently. So it's important to have a plan surrounding this. A portfolio is one thing. A plan is something totally separate.
Well, we've got the 10 spots on the counter for the upcoming week. Casey, what's going to happen for these 10 callers?
Well, for those that are willing to pick up the phone and give us a shout, we're simply going to sit down and have a conversation with you. We're going to talk about all the things that we've talked about today. When do you want to retire? What are your income sources going to look like? What about your expenses? How is that going to affect you in retirement? Are they going to change? Does your current plan account for inflation, or is there even a plan currently in place? We'll talk about that asset allocation, all those parts and pieces. And so, again, this is to sit down, have a conversation, and figure out, put together a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. We'll make sure that accounts for all the parts and pieces that we've discussed today, and a lot of other items as well.
All right, we've got 10 positions. Here's the number, 866-668-3625. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies will work best for you. 866-668-3625. Again, 866-668-3625. We're back right after this. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, can be found right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management is where they are located. You can find them online, efmnw.com. That's all letters. It's a great resource website. Check it out, efmnw.com. Links to the TV show Elevate Your Wealth and all of our radio shows are in podcast form for you there. And between Mark and Casey, 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They are fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, and away we go. And we want to remind you, too, there's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Mark and Casey, and it's no cost, no obligation, no pressure. Jot this number down, 866-668-3625. 866-668-3625. That's the number that will grab one of those appointments for you, and it's no cost, no obligation, no pressure. So it's crucial for every single listener out there to know that their plan is working like a well-oiled machine. And of course, the fundamentals are key to that success. And a refresher course, it never hurts, right? So let's look at a few important do's. And if we have time, we'll get to some of the don'ts that you need to avoid. But let's go do. And Casey, you get the first one. You got to review the performance and management of all of your plan and the investment options.
You really do. And this is something you've got to do regularly. Morgan, let me ask you a question. Did you ever have a George Foreman grill?
Yeah, actually, I have one.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Okay. So what's the slogan, right, for the George Foreman grill? Set it and forget it, yes. Right? And that's the deal. And so many people do that with their investments. So many people set it and forget it. And realistically, that's a recipe for disaster in so many ways, because the investing world is changing, right? The way we invest today is not how we invested even 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, COVID threw the market upside down, right? And if we rewind even further than that, things have changed a lot. Technology has come a long way. And we talk about this pretty regularly, that We'll give you an example. Elon Musk can send a tweet and the stock market goes crazy. And so if we have a set it and forget it type of portfolio right now, we are really not setting ourselves up for success. So we want to review it regularly. We want to make sure that we're making adjustments based on how the market is doing, and also based on where we're at in our retirement or where we're at approaching retirement, right? Because our life is changing too. It's not just external factors, it's also internal factors to our life, and what's appropriate for us now may not be what was appropriate for us even a year or 2 or 3 years ago, right? So we want to make sure we're adjusting accordingly. You want to add something, Mark?
Yeah, I was just going to say, not too long ago, BlackRock just came out with a great article. And for a lot of listeners, I think you know who BlackRock is. They're the largest money manager in the world. And they came flat out and said, if you go by the old modern portfolio theory of like a 60-40 split, you're probably going to be in trouble. And they basically said it's going to take a new playbook. You got to throw the old one out, and you've got to get creative with how you're going to set your retirement up. Because if you don't, it could lead, as Casey mentioned, it could be disastrous if you're not careful.
Right. And what they said in that was what's worked in the past is not going to work in the future. Exactly. Right. And that's exactly where that set it and forget it mindset is not going to create success.
Yeah. And if you haven't taken a look at it in a while, folks, I mean, this is an opportunity for you. We're giving you that kind of that refresher course. And these are the do's you really need to be on top of. So review the performance. Do this on a regular basis of what's going on with your investment options. Mark this next one, another do, watch for newly added funds to your portfolio. If you're in a 401k at work, they do change that up every now and then.
Yep. And it goes in line with what Casey was just saying. So many people set it and forget it. They don't even know that these new funds have been put in there, so they don't change them when it could be massively advantageous for them to do that. So you need to look at it. You need to go inside, check your plan out. They don't do a really good job. Casey and I talk about this at our workshop. We had a plan administrator walk up to Casey during one of our workshops, and she admitted that she didn't even really know inside the plan and wasn't able to really give out good advice. Can you imagine if that's what the plan manager, administrator is saying? How is the client supposed to know what to do, right? And it can be disastrous. So you do want to pay attention to it, check it out. And if you've got questions, reach out to your advisor, and hopefully he or she is a fiduciary, because we're glad to help our clients talk about some of these things that they may have no knowledge about whatsoever, because it can really make a difference if you're willing to make changes along the way. You just can't be static and set it like a George Foreman grill, because it could end up getting burnt really bad.
Elevate your wealth. You're tuned to it. Powered by Elevated Financial Management, where you can find Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins right here in Seattle. Opportunity to get on their calendar coming up, so stay tuned. We're getting back to basics, going over some fundamentals. These are the do's, all right? Stay on top of this. Regularly review the performance and management of all your planned investment options. Watch for newly added funds to your portfolio. And then this next one, Casey, adjust your portfolio to match your risk tolerance.
Yeah, this one gets missed so often. I think if there's one thing that Mark and I see more than anything else in the office is folks coming in invested much more aggressively than they're actually comfortable with or than they realize that they're investing. Just taking on a lot more of the market risk than they realize. And some of that has to do with like what Mark said, where there's really sometimes not a lot of options inside your 401k, but that doesn't mean that you can't still make some adjustments. And realistically, as we've talked about quite a number of times, the risk that you're taking should adjust over your lifetime. Somebody who is 35 or 40 has the ability and should be taking more risk than somebody who is 60, 62, even 55 as they're approaching retirement. Wanting to take some of that risk off the table is an appropriate mindset. And so we want to make sure that we're adjusting accordingly and making sure that our investments fit our lifestyle instead of trying to make us fit the investing world.
Mark, this next one, I mean, just take time to educate yourself on how to invest for retirement.
Yeah, this is such a good one. And I like to use the analogy, think about your favorite football team or basketball team. How many times do we hear that they go in at halftime and they make adjustments, right? And a lot of teams, good coaches, you think of Bill Belichick and how many 6 or 7 Super Bowls that he's won, adjustments were made at halftime. And you've got to be willing to do this. It's very same thing with your retirement, because if you don't, you're possibly missing out on things that maybe you don't even know about. That's why a financial coach or a fiduciary that's educated in this world is going to be able to help you maybe see things differently, talk about things with you that you had no idea about. What about formulating some good tax strategies? See, so you don't want to miss on opportunities to grow your portfolio when you're in the growth mode. If you're in preservation mode, you're close to retirement, you're in the retirement red zone, you've got to invest totally differently, because we have to worry about what we call sequence of return risk. All of these things a good coach is going to be able to help you with and be able to make adjustments on your plan at halftime, you might say, so that you can come out victorious, because that's really our goal at our company. For Casey and I and Brian, we want our clients to have a very successful and happy retirement. We don't want it to turn out to be just a fairy tale, especially because you didn't make any adjustments or you didn't do any planning at all.
The final do, getting back to basics, the fundamentals. And again, this is about the emergency fund. Susie Orman breaks down just the importance of having it.
You need, I still believe it, 8 to 12 months of expenses that you have to pay for. What we're talking about is an emergency savings account. Why? You are still working. You're still healthy. You still have a paycheck coming in. But guess what? You don't have any money saved. So you don't do the other and you have nothing. And then something hits you. And what do? You put it on your credit card. You can't pay it, like I said, in full. And that's the worst time right now, because what the feds are doing, and the more they raise interest rates, or the more they've raised interest rates, the more the interest rate is on those cards. This is where you start to learn how to save. This is where all of a sudden you understand, oh my God, savings feels great. I have money. I don't have to go to my credit card that I've already maxed out on now. So now what am I going to do? So do you see how it all works together, which is what financial security is all about?
Casey, your thoughts on the emergency fund? Go.
You got to have an emergency fund. Absolutely. And this is something that so many people miss. Mark and I have both seen it. High earners that really live paycheck to paycheck, they're not saving anything for an emergency. And again, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. This is something that we want to establish for every client and make sure that they have that emergency fund, so that they can be successful in retirement. And when those what ifs come up, they're not freaking out and stressed that they have to go liquidate market shares.
Taya, now's the opportunity to see where you are in your planning process. Mark, let's bring you in. We've got 10 positions on the calendar at Elevated Financial Management. We're going to open those up. What's going to happen for these 10 lucky callers?
Yeah, what you've been listening to is what we're going to come up with for you as a plan based on your individual circumstances. So if you've saved at least $250,000 or more, maybe you worked at Boeing or are working at Boeing or Warehouse or any one of our great companies up here in the great Northwest, we're going to have a team of certified financial planners put together a written plan, which we know the bulk of our listeners don't have. You deserve that. You need to have a written plan. We're going to look at taxes in depth. We're going to look at where your guaranteed income is going to come from. We're going to look at maybe your medical situation a little bit. Do you need long-term care? So all of this is going to be put together by our team of certified financial planners. So please pick up the phone and give us a call. Let us help. Let's just have a conversation.
All right, folks, we have 10 positions on the calendar. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call this number, 866-668-3625. That number again, 866-668-3625. Again, 10 positions. These are no cost, no obligation, no pressure appointments. See where you are in your retirement planning process. Do you need to get back to basics? Have you even thought about what's going on in that portfolio? You really need to do that. And you can start it right now, 866-668-3625. We're back on the other side. welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management. It's always about retirement planning. 42 years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business, and they've been helping their clients get ready for retirement. They are fiduciaries. Check them out online. It's a great resource website, all letters, EFMNW.com. That's EFMNW.com. Again, the TV show, Elevate Your Wealth, links there, and also all of our radio shows in podcast form. You can find them. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with the team at Elevated Financial Management, and these appointments that we make available for our radio listeners are no cost, no obligation, no pressure. So we talked about the do's in the last segment, getting back to basics when it comes to retirement planning. Now we're going to give you some things to avoid, okay? Mark, you're up first, and here it is. Avoid this, putting all your money into funds that gave you the biggest return last year. Man, I loved them last year. I'm going to love them again this year.
Yeah, exactly. We see this all the time, right? But that's kind of like Casey and I talk about trying to time the market with every client, because people that think they can do that, well, we wish them the very best, because I know Casey and I can't do it. We've been doing this a long time, and I don't try and do it. Casey doesn't do it. Brian doesn't do it. It just doesn't make sense. And what was sexy last year isn't necessarily sexy this year, right, Casey? And so you got to be careful with that. You don't want to chase returns, because we realize it's one of the biggest mistakes that a client ends up making is they think they got 10% last year, they're going to get 10% this year. So they go chasing, it's like they're chasing the wind, and it usually isn't a very good thing. You usually can't catch it, and it's just not a smart investing strategy. We know that, most people know it, but emotions get involved, and we tend to make decisions that aren't a lot of times in our best interest when that happens.
Having some fun with this, getting back to basics. We've gone over the do's, and now we're hitting a few don'ts. So avoid this, all right? You don't want to do this. Don't go chasing, those returns. And if you had a great return last year, guess what? Don't be married to it. You need to have that conversation. You need to make sure you're planning for it. Here's another don't, Casey. Trying to act like a professional day trader with your retirement savings.
Yeah, this is something that you just can't do. Realistically, what it boils down to is I think this is much more common than it used to be, because we live in kind of this DIY society, right? And I think that's great. I love doing projects myself. I love working on things. I love learning and trying to tackle something myself. But there's certain things that are just beyond the grasp of somebody who's not solely focused on it. So, like, for example, it's one thing to watch a YouTube video or to watch something and try and learn and teach yourself. It's another thing to try and diagnose something serious medically, right? And so there's a line that has to be drawn. If you're taking a portion of your funds, a small account, and you're day trading that and learning and enjoying that, that's great. But realistically, your retirement plan, if you cannot dedicate your day to day to manage those funds, to make sure that it's going to be a success, then that is not something that you should be doing. This is a circumstance where you need a professional. And that is where the line has to be drawn. We have to recognize when it's time to employ the use of a professional to make sure that those things that we don't know are taken care of, right? Those oops, those gotchas that come up, we want to make sure that those are being addressed, and we have to trust the right folks to do that. And so trading our retirement savings like we're a day trader is really not setting ourselves up for success.
Getting back to basics when it comes to retirement planning and going over the do's and don'ts. And we had a lot of fun with the do's, and we're making sure you avoid these don'ts. All right. We got time for one more. Mark will let you handle this one. This is a don't. Completely avoid risk. I mean, don't be a scaredy cat, but be aware, be smart.
Yeah, this is something that we love some software that's used by most what we would call ethical planning firms in the United States. We use a program called Riskalyze. It's going to give you what's known as a risk score from 1 to 100. If you're 100, you're the most riskiest investor there is. A lot of our clients will come in anywhere between 30 and 50 on average. So the more risk that you want to take, the more you have at stake, right? And some people are risk adverse, but if you get so scared about the market and taking risk, then and you don't do any, let's say you go into nothing but bonds, which is very risky, right? Or you go into cash, let's say. Cash is going to be a problem right now, right? Because inflation is going to eat those dollars up, and you don't really see inflation. It's like the wind. I use that illustration all the time. And so if you don't stay ahead of inflation, then it's going to be a problem, especially when we need to worry about a 30 or 40 year retirement time frame. And so you've got to take some risk. Equities are your best thing to use if you want to stay ahead of inflation. So please don't avoid all risk, but be balanced about it. That's where we talk about having a plan can really help make you successful.
Yeah, so important to map it out. So important to work with fiduciaries, have it down, talk about the do's, talk about the don'ts, and understand where you need to stay away from. And again, I mean, dive in, educate yourself. I mean, be involved with your planning process. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, meet with Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, and their team. And it's no cost, no obligation, no pressure. If you've saved at least $250,000 for your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. The number is 866-668-3625. That number one more time, 866-668-3625. Again, 10 appointments are available, and you can call and grab one right now. So let's switch gears, and I'm going to ask you this question. Are you unintentionally sabotaging your financial future? And you're probably saying, huh? What? You'd be surprised. There are a lot of folks out there that don't understand how their bad financial habits can really impact their retirement. So we're going to talk about getting rid of some of these bad habits. So Mark, let's start with you. First bad habit, spending now rather than saving for later.
Yeah, and this is something I think we're all guilty of to a certain degree. One of the things Casey and I run into is we have a lot of clients when they come in, they've done a really good job of saving, and getting them to become spenders is really hard. It's one of our hardest things that we have a client have to try and do. Now, we're talking the exact opposite, where you say that you're going to, save for retirement, but your spending patterns don't allow you to do that. See, so if you never pay yourself first, I remember my two boys, they had a paper route, and I made them save 10 to 15% of every check before they would go out and spend to get something they want. And I highly recommend that we do that today, because it's so easy to make that statement. You know what? I'm going to start saving when, right? And we know the when usually doesn't happen when I get my bills paid off, or when I get my car paid off, or once I get my house, right? These are the things that people will find excuses all day long to not save. But you've got to be willing to do it. You can make a budget. You can still pay the bills that you have to, but you've got to be willing to save for retirement, right? Because if you don't, you're going to have a regret, right? There's a pain of discipline and the pain of regret. And the pain of regret, a lot of times, is way more painful than discipline. When look at how many people are working at Walmart right now. And I'm thankful that Walmart hires those of us that are getting up in age. But why are they there? It's because they didn't save for retirement, right? Or save enough. And they're dealing with the pain of regret. So please take time, set aside some money now for your future so that you can actually retire and do the things that you dreamed and hoped you would be able to do.
Look, I mean, a lot of people could be in this boat. I mean, you might be sabotaging your financial future with some of the stuff you're doing right now with your financial bad habits. And we're talking about some of those bad habits today. And if you're spending now as opposed to saving for later, yeah, you might be having a good time, but man, I tell you, you're going to get towards retirement and you are going to regret it. This next one, another bad habit, Casey, underestimating just how much you're going to need to retire.
Yeah, that's, man, this is so common. I think this is something that most folks fall into. And we've talked about this before, even earlier today, actually, where so many folks think that when they think of their expenses and they think of what they need in retirement, they're only thinking of waking up and paying the bills. They're not thinking of the life they want to live. They're not thinking of the fact that they've spent 40 years working and accumulating these funds to go live their life. And so many folks underestimate how much they're going to need. Something else that we see quite a bit too is many people think, well, I'm only going to need 75% of my current income in retirement. That's true for some folks. For some folks, it's less. For some folks, it's more. The reality is what's appropriate for you. I'm not worried about what's appropriate based on what this article said. It's realistically what's appropriate in your circumstance. What do you need to live the happy, successful retirement that you've been dreaming of? And so you've got to work with somebody who can help you account for those expenses, figure out what you're spending, what your income needs to be, and really create a plan that's going to help you be successful in that circumstance.
Let's hit one more bad habit. Mark, we're going to throw this one at you. And again, these are things you need to avoid. You really need to kind of dial it in, especially when you start to think about planning for retirement, things that you can be doing. And you could have some pretty bad financial habits that could just wreck your retirement. Misunderstanding what diversification means, that is something you need to correct.
Yes, and we see this again all the time as well. People will come in and say, I've got, 20 different mutual funds inside my plan, but here's the problem with that. A lot of the mutual funds are carrying the same stocks inside of those plans. So if it's what we call overlap in this business. So you're not truly diversified. Being diversified really means having investments in different sectors, completely different. Just mutual funds by themselves and having a bunch of them doesn't mean you're diversified. Yet that's what a lot of investors believe. So we look a lot for overlap, because if you've got a lot of different mutual funds all doing with the same companies, they're all going up together and they're all going down together, which doesn't create any diversification, even though you might think that it does.
Casey, we've got room on the calendar next week, 10 spots. What's going to happen for these 10 callers?
Well, it's an opportunity to sit down and get a written financial plan specifically written for you, for what you're looking for in retirement, going on based on what your income is going to be, what your income needs to be, what your expenses will look like in retirement. What is your tax burden? That's something that so many folks don't understand or unaware of, what their tax burden is going to look like in retirement. We want to make sure we're addressing that. Make sure that you have an income plan that accounts for inflation. Talk about health care. Make sure that those expenses are going to be taken care of successfully. So again, this is a written plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone now.
Here's the phone number to call, 866-668-3625. One more time, 866-668-3625. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number now, get one of these appointments. And again, that ease of mind knowing you've either started down the path to retirement planning or you're getting that second opinion. 866-668-3625 will secure one of those appointments. Again, call 866-668-3625. When we come back, we've got some scenarios we're going to throw at the guys, see how they do. Again, always about retirement. That's all coming up next on Elevate Your Wealth. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management, 42 years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their golden years, their retirement. They are fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We go back and forth on retirement topics each and every week, but we also give you an opportunity to take action. That's right. Get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management at no cost, no obligation, no pressure, just to see where you are in your planning process. Maybe you haven't started. Maybe you need that second opinion. Again, these are complimentary. We have 10 of them. They are open now. We opened them up at the beginning of the show, and they will remain open through the end of the show, but they do fill up fast. You can always call 866-668-3625 and claim one of those appointments, 866-668-3625. All right, we're going to go over some scenarios. I throw these at the guys, and they come up with, well, what they would do. All right, so here's the first scenario, Mark. I'll throw it to you. My company offers a 401k and a Roth 401k, and currently I contribute 6% to my 401k and 8% to my Roth 401k. Is this a good long-term strategy? First question. I want to contribute all to my Roth 401k starting this year, and is that a better strategy? Also, can I take out my principal if needed from my Roth 401k since it is after tax dollars?
Yeah, these are really good questions, Morgan. The one thing that I and Casey are big believers in, you've got to take advantage of any money that an employer will give to you. Free, I call it free money, right? So I like to use the strategy of put in the minimum amount that you have to contribute personally to get the maximum from the company, because I do believe there's some other types of strategies that can work to create tax-free income. And that's why I love the question about the Roth. In the long run, yes, I am a much bigger believer and in favor of Roth over traditional accounts. Why? Because of the tax planning and the tax reasons. Roth money, there are some particulars. The time frame is needed to know here, but I will tell you, for the bulk of you that are still working, I believe a Roth will help you more than a traditional will. But you've got to get the free money. But some plans offer Roth options, some don't, including 401k. So you need to find that out. We talked about this earlier. You need to look at your plan and find out if that's even an option for you. If it is, I would take advantage of the Roth. Why? Because all of the growth that you accumulate in that Roth account will be yours on the back end when you retire. Now, that there is a caveat. It has to be in the account for at least 5 years for you to be able to take out the gain or what you've made tax-free. So it's got to be in the account for 5 years. But you do have the ability to take out the principal, as you asked that question. Can you take it out before 5 years? Absolutely. Now, you still have to be worried about the 59.5 rule. That's what we call kind of the golden age date that takes the 10% early withdrawal penalty off the table. So there's some tax strategies and understanding of tax law that you need to know. But in the long run, yes, I love using a Roth account. And that brings also life insurance into play, because what a lot of our listeners don't know is the Roth concept goes into life insurance planning, because you can actually do life insurance planning that is designed for retirement income, not for death benefit. And the amazing thing about life insurance, when you use it right in this regard, is there's no income limits, and you can contribute more to the plan than you can in a traditional IRA or a traditional Roth account. So again, it's just a different option that a lot of people are not familiar with, but it can be very tax advantageous. And I think we'd all agree taxes are most likely going to be going up, not down. So that makes the tax-free part of this planning even more important.
Elevate your wealth. We're going over retirement scenarios. Again, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle, lending their expertise on these different scenarios. This next one, Casey, I'll put to you. My advisor with a well-known company has my retirement portfolio in 20 or more funds, 30% of that in ETFs, and 4 cash funds. It's very confusing. They claim to be fiduciaries. The money is safe, but returns given this year have not been good enough, in my opinion. I'm 65. My spouse, 64. Is my portfolio spread across too many funds given my age?
That's a great question, and it's good that you might be looking at your portfolio with that type of analytical mindset, because realistically, we do see that quite a bit. We see that sometimes folks feel what I would call the illusion of diversification because they're in so many different funds. But what really is the problem is, what are those funds investing in, right? The fund is made up of different stocks and bonds. And so realistically, if we have 20 different funds or so, the chances that they're all holding different stocks and bonds are pretty slim. There's probably quite a bit of what we would call overlap, meaning they're maybe funds A, B, and C are all holding a lot of technology, and other funds are holding different types of investments, but they're kind of doing the same thing. And so that does tend to create a lack of diversification. Now, it'd be hard for me to say that that is for sure the circumstance here, but that as an educated guess, I would think that that's probably what's going on, is that maybe you're not really as diversified as you'd like to be. In addition to that, I do want to say that you mentioned that the funds are safe, but that the returns given this year have not been good enough, or at least not up to your expectations. I'll just add this thought in there. Funds being safe when you're 65, 64, I think you said your spouse was, in that circumstance, having some funds that are safe is really important. Making sure that you do have a level of protection. Now, not every dollar should be invested so conservatively that we're sacrificing growth on the upside. But at the same time, we don't want to be investing like we're 40 or 45 and we have 20 years before we retire, because that's not the circumstance, I imagine, given your age, that you'll be retiring soon. And so in that circumstance, we want to make sure that we do have some funds invested conservatively, but we also have other funds that are maybe taking more risk that can be more aggressive. And this is really, again, where it boils down to having a plan. When we just look at the investments themselves, that's one thing. And it can be good to look at this stock versus this, or this fund versus this fund. And that can be a good exercise. But realistically, it's about having a plan so that all of our dollars aren't doing the same thing. They aren't all taking the same level of risk or being too conservative. And we want to have different buckets of money accomplishing different things. And that's what's going to create the success that you're looking for in retirement.
Going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, meet with Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, and their team, see where you are in your retirement planning process. Again, we have 10 appointments. They're available now. And again, no cost, no obligation, no pressure. The number to call is 866-668-3625. One more time, 866-668-3625. All right, another scenario. Mark, this one for you. My mother-in-law, 61 and near retirement, and she has savings, but nothing invested in way of an employer plan like a 401k or an IRA. The initial plan has been to live within her means and rely on Social Security. Could she invest in bonds or maybe an index fund, or is there some kind of structured plan you might recommend?
Yeah, this is a really great question. I can tell based on the parameters you just gave me, Morgan, that she's pretty conservative in how she's invested, which I appreciate that. But we talked about sometimes we might get a little too conservative and not be taking any risk. Hopefully, I don't know how much money she saved up, but a lot of what she wants to do is going to hinge on how much money she has saved, right? And so she didn't have a 401k or an IRA that she invested in. So that really limits her option. I'm anxious to find out all of the rest of the scenario for her. But one of the things I would say, if she's going to rely pretty much on Social Security and that's it, it might be a little rough depending on what part of the country you live. Up here in Seattle, that's going to be a rough road if you don't have another source of income. Bonds have always been usually a very conservative estimate. We use them for income. But right now, with interest rates rising, bonds are not a tool that a lot of investors want to look at really hard right now. There are bond alternatives out there that we believe are a lot better right now, given what the Fed is doing with interest rates. I think that can create a structured plan, like you mentioned, that could give her the guarantees that she needs. But that brings into play the A word, right? The annuity. So again, there's things that you can do, but again, you need to have a plan. We need to fully understand your situation. What do you want those funds or those monies to do? And then we design it around that. It's not that we're trying to sell anybody anything. We're trying to solve a problem. And so in this case, I think maybe a guaranteed type of account that's going to either protect the principal or give you income for life could be a very valuable tool based on that situation.
Elevate Your Wealth. You're tuned to it, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Mark, we have 10 positions on the calendar, and these are no cost, no obligation, no pressure. Walk us through what's going to happen for these 10 appointments.
Yeah, so if you pick up your phone, we're going to develop a written plan that's done by our team of certified financial planners. So if you've saved $250,000 or more, maybe you work at Boeing or have worked at Boeing, you just need some help. You need maybe a second opinion. You're not sure if you're headed down the right path and that your money will last through a complete retirement cycle. This is something we want to help you with. We'll look at your taxes. We're going to take a deep dive into how you're going to take money out of your different buckets and at what time. Timing is important. What about your Social Security? When do you want to draw that? That's something we run into all the time. People are not sure. So many people are taking it early at 62. Well, for a lot of our clients, that is not a good choice. So again, we want to help you make decisions that are going to affect retirement, taxes, income, and different health scenarios. So please pick up the phone and give us a call. We're here to help. Let's have a conversation.
This is your opportunity. 10 appointments at Elevated Financial Management. No cost, no obligation, no pressure. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Here's the phone number to call to secure your appointment, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain when it comes to knowledge about retirement planning. And this is no cost, no obligation, no pressure. 866-668-3625. Call that number now. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, I'm Morgan Patrick. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.